everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Tracy, for putting this together. I'm Chelsea, and I am here today just to kind of help out with the Zoom. And I also needed CERB. So this is a really great chat. We can, first I'm just going to do a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that this land located on present-day Toronto, currently referred to as Toronto, is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Mississauga of the Credit. We acknowledge the Dish with One Spoon Covenant is a treaty between two Indigenous groups, the Council of Three Fires and the Anishinaabe, a treaty whose spirit is one based in collective stewardship and reciprocity. We take the spirit of this covenant to the core of our activities as we celebrate changing the world together through the creation of a basic income with people from many nations across the globe. Please take a minute to think of the land that you're currently residing on, wherever that may be, and acknowledge those who went before and those yet to come. So thank you so much for that. And I will turn the floor over to Jessie Gollum for a little bit more about the CERB and basic income.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to be here. I apologize for my messy apartment. It's kind of under renovations and construction right now. But yeah, no, I'm here because I want to talk a little bit about basic income. So CERB was actually the second time in my life where I required government financial assistance, and the first time I received financial assistance from the government was the Ontario Basic Income Pilot, which took place in 2017 and was prematurely canceled in 2018 by the Ford government, despite them making an election promise to keep the basic income pilot. The cancellation threw a lot of people's lives, myself included, into chaos. And I had actually made the decision when I was on, when the pilot was canceled, to produce a portrait series called Humans of Basic Income, where I actually took pictures of the other basic income recipients. I asked them what they were using basic income for, and they wrote the answers down on a piece of cardboard, and I had pictures of them holding those pictures and telling me their stories. And the answers were very similar to my own life. So back then, before I was on basic income, I had 4 jobs. I was trying to cobble together several minimum wage, contract work, gig economy jobs, just trying to barely survive. And I had no free time whatsoever. I was working 60 to 80-hour work weeks. I was trying to start a business at the same time, and finding that because I had no time to invest in my business, because I was constantly working and constantly stressed out and constantly exhausted, that I could barely get my business off the ground. So basic income gave me that freedom to work on my business. So I was able to drop down and quit those jobs that were paying terrible pay with no protections. And because it was contract work, I could be fired at a moment's notice without any reason. So I was able to quit those jobs and focus exclusively on building my business. And what I saw was that my business was starting to grow rapidly. And I was actually starting to make more money on this business and on basic income than I was cobbling together those terrible jobs. So it was actually a really good thing. And I was really surprised. And I wrote out a whole business plan and predicted and did financial projections. And I actually predicted that I would have only been on basic income for 2 out of the 3 years the pilot was supposed to run, because then at that point, my business would have been thriving. I would have been thorough. I would not have qualified for basic income anymore. I would have been making way too much money. And that money is, taxpayer money that goes into our society, contributes to the economy. And the cancellation of the basic income pilot forced me to stop my business. I had to put my business on the shelf. I wasn't able to do it anymore. And that's taxpayer money and economic output that government did not see. So when they talk about being fiscally conservative and saving money, this was an utter waste of money. And I wasn't the only story. Several people on the pilot were doing similar things. They were going to school, they were bettering their education, they were getting better jobs. People were choosing to leave situations of domestic violence. People were spending more time investing in their children and ensuring a healthy and happy and safe living environment for their children. There were just so many good things that were happening with it. And then so following the basic income pilot, I produced this portrait series, and the portrait series gained international recognition. I was able to exhibit the portraits all across Canada and all across the world. In 2019, I traveled to New York City and exhibited them at the North American Basic Income Conference. And then I traveled to India and I exhibited them at the Basic Income Earth Congress. And I think that the portraits struck a chord because so many people can relate to this kind of circumstance and relate to feeling trapped and just sort of trapped in poverty and not able to, no matter how hard you work and no matter like how many hours you put in, you're still, the working poor is still just struggling just to survive, let alone thrive, or let alone pursue your dreams. And then basic income being that opportunity to pursue those dreams. And not a single person I met, sat around playing video games all day or saw it as free money from the government. Everybody saw it as an opportunity and to work, to do something better, to pursue their dreams. And they wanted to do that. And then, as we all know, March 2020 came around and the pandemic hit, and overnight, millions of us lost our jobs and millions of us couldn't go to work. And I was one of those people. I was teaching piano at the time, and all of a sudden I couldn't teach piano anymore. I couldn't go into people's houses. So I had to move all my business online. And doing that, I lost over half of my piano students. So what would have been a full-time job was completely reduced because, I'm not going to ask kids to be online for another piano lesson after they've been online at school for 7 hours a day. So it was really difficult. I needed CERB to be able to get by. And because of CERB, I was able to not lose my apartment. I was able to pay rent on time every single month. And I was able to save money. I paid off all of my debt. I paid off my credit card entirely. I paid off a huge portion of my student debt, and I will have my student debt fully repaid by the end of November. And then I was actually able to take that business that I was forced to shut down when the basic income pilot got canceled. I was able to take it off the shelf, finally finish building the product I was able to build. And now I'm only 3.5, 4 years later, I'm finally able to restart and launch my business and be able to do that full time and make it full time. So because of CERB, I was able to do that, and it bought me the time to do that. And then as soon as I went back, as soon as the world started opening up and lockdown restrictions were lifted, I was able to get off of CERB and focus on working full time. So I was working the whole time. Nobody was being lazy. And there have been studies that have looked at different basic income pilots, for lack of a better word, that have taken place all over the world, or pilots where governments have given cash incentives to citizens. And what happens when people are given money from the government? Do they sit around? Do they are they lazy or anything? But that's not what happens. People work more. The only people groups that worked less were people that chose to go back to school, so they were bettering their education so they could have better job opportunities, or people who chose to be stay-at-home parents and care for either children or loved ones or elderly dependents or disabled dependents. So nobody's working less. And this was a great opportunity. And I do believe, I firmly believe that CERB saved the Canadian economy during the pandemic and saved millions of people's lives when their jobs were terminated overnight because of what had happened and because of the sudden shift in the world. I think that's all I got for now. If anybody has any questions or any further thoughts or anything.
Thank you so much, Jessie.
Thank you.
Tracy, did you want to introduce the next speaker?
I have to go now, but thank you.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you. Okay, unmute. Okay, I would like to have Sean. He is out in BC, and he owns a business, and so he's going to talk about his. Go ahead, take it away.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean. I created Music Bingo about 22 years ago. It's being borrowed all over the world, which is a little bit irritating, but that's what I've been up to. 22 years ago, I graduated BCIT radio broadcast, and then ended up taking another government program called the UP program, which was the Young Entrepreneurs Program. And what it did is it paid a stipend, and what it allowed me to do was to take the Young Entrepreneurs Program as a full-time, 9 to 5 kind of thing, and work on my business, which is what I ended up having. And in my business, we basically do sort of like a music trivia type thing in bars, restaurants, and pubs and stuff like that across the country. In the last 22 years, I've created over $120 million in extra revenue for bars and restaurants, and over $20 million in additional disposable income by having people getting extra shifts because we're there. For an example, there's a pub in Victoria, does Friday night numbers on a Monday night. That's about 5 extra shifts at $100 per person. 5 extra shifts, that's $25K a year for one bar. That's extra disposable income and stuff like that. So what happened this, on March the 16th, 2020, my business actually went to zero, which is unbelievable. I never, ever would have expected that. We had over 70 accounts across the country and it all went to zero. What I did is I wanted to pivot. I also want to say a couple of things because I think the entertainment sector in this country is highly neglected. Nobody talks about us. If you think about entertainment being bands, karaoke, DJs, trivia, music bingo, it's well over $1 billion that we contribute or generate in the restaurant bar industry from Newfoundland through to BC. And we weren't even mentioned in March of 2020. We were the last thing I think mentioned in September or something like that of 2020, and nobody's really talking about us. And yet we generate additional revenue for an awful lot of venues and stuff like that. So I'd like to sort of throw that in for us. I'm also not somebody, I mean, I own a sort of a multi-op company. So it's not something that I do part-time. This is something that I do full-time. And so we've pivoted and done quite a bit of stuff online. And actually started raising, I think we've done over $175,000 now for charities by doing our game online. And we're about 30% back, I believe, as far as live events go. CERB for me was absolutely incredible. I ended up taking my payroll from about $50,000 a year. I'm now this year at the current, I'm $20,000 a month right now, as I've hired programmers and that sort of thing to try and make this work. My entire life savings is gone. It's been replaced by debt from the government, thank goodness. I'm certainly not looking for handouts, and I'm not looking for I'm just looking for loans. I'm more than happy to pay it back. I believe when I got the money 22 years ago with the YEP program, I believe that I paid that forward. And I'm positive that what we're doing now is going to pay it back forward again by creating more jobs and that sort of thing in the country. CERB for me was huge. I still, because I'm just paying everything out in salaries. And I am proud of the fact that I've got about 9 people right now that I'm paying, and I'm paying more. Well, with the exception of 2 people, everybody is being paid what I consider to be a living wage of $25 an hour or more, which I think is absolutely critical. I know you guys are talking about a living wage, and I do. If you allow me for a second, my daughter is about 24. When I was 24, I was paying a mortgage of, I think, $350 a month, and I was making about $2,400 a month, which is what she's sort of making after her taxes. I think she makes $3,000 something or other, but she's got about $2,400 left. Rent out here, it's incredible. It's like $1,400-1,500 for a single bedroom place. So she's left with less than $1,000 a month to feed herself and telephone and all those kind of, and it's survival is what it is. It's absolutely nuts. And so if you are talking about something like a basic income or something like that sort of will subsidize and allow people to be able to make investments in themselves and better themselves, I think that's perfect. There will probably be a segment of people that are going to use that to go party down at the beach, but there's also an awful lot of us other people that go out there and try and pay it forward and create income and create jobs and stuff like that for other people. So I am very, very, very thankful for the Liberal government, and I would never have voted for the Liberal government before the pandemic, and I voted for them this time around because I am simply not here without the programs that they put in. I absolutely love the fact that Justin Trudeau said, you know what, we're going to look after you, and that's what he's done so far. It's a little bit tough at the moment because we're still not quite finished in our pivot, and I'm still shelling out a hell of a lot of money. I got about 3 to 4 months left. And as most of you know, they're just now starting to come out of lockouts and restrictions. We still have a bunch of restrictions as far as numbers in bars and pubs go in several locations, so we're still not able to come back completely yet. But I think I've covered just about everything there. I hope I haven't forgotten anything, but I am definitely, I've used the government program with the UP program once, and I believe I paid that back, and I'm positive that I'll be able to pay this back big time for the future as well. And thank you very much for letting me have this time to say that.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. One question for you from the Toronto Star. When people say that the CERB made people lazy, what's your views on that?
You know what? I want to be careful because I actually use the hospitality industry a lot. I don't think so at all. Again, I'll just even look at my own situation. You know what? I could have gone and fried chicken at KFC, I suppose. But to me, I think that, having myself doing what I'm doing is creating a lot more jobs if we're able to do what we need to do. So do I think that I'm lazy in taking the CERB? I don't. I think that I'm taking the CERB, putting my money back into, employing other people and creating a product that I absolutely know worked for 22 years. And I absolutely know that we can help and save the hospitality industry by, again, creating more shifts and that sort of thing for them. I do think that the hospitality, I think that it's, you know what, again, like I said, minimum wage ought to be $25 an hour. And I can't go and sit down and order a burger for less than $18. So you essentially have to sell 2 burgers an hour to be paying somebody about $25 an hour to do that. With the wage subsidies as well, I believe that, you could get creative and say, hey, you know what? We'll give you a bonus for the number of hours that you work, until the end of October. And that way, maybe you're paying somebody $30 an hour and you're not stuck into having to pay them $30 an hour after they've left, after the government program, the wage subsidy thing ended. But you're able to give them a bonus for working, and they're able to make a little bit of extra money. To me, that's all going to go back into the economy anyways, because we spend, we're not really saving it. So yeah, I just think that there's other creative things that people could have done. The wage subsidy really is meant to do exactly that, hire people. And in the hospitality industry, you're not paying out wages unless you're bringing in some income somewhere. So I think that they could have done a few things differently that way.
Another question, since you own a business, for when people apply for a job for you, how many people apply for that one job? And where do you just personally pick them, or do you go to the job bank, or do you go to Indeed, or do you just hire on your own?
So the business for me has been interesting. In 22 years, it was mostly entertainment and a little bit of technology. Now it's pretty much all technology and a little bit of entertainment. If I'm hiring hosts and people to host the game, I'm looking for hospitality industry people, and I would put my ads out in hospitality on, it used to be Craigslist and stuff like that. I use Indeed now. The free part of Indeed. The programmers, I let my programmers do that because it's crazy. It's a different language. I have no idea what they're doing. that's been tough. That's another story for another time, I guess. With Indeed, when we did programmers, we're probably around 100 or so. And then when I was looking for hosts, probably I got 200 hosts. And then when I was looking for marketing, I got about 100 people on the marketing. I don't know. I don't think most of them were overly serious. I think a lot of people are just submitting applications because they need to. So I would say probably 20% of them were probably, but then I also throw up a few things like I do a group Zoom meeting. So if you don't show up for that, I'm assuming you're not overly interested. So, so that's kind of how I do that.
Okay. So another question,
Yeah.
how long do you think that, how long do you think CRB should be extended?
You know, I don't have a huge problem with the way they've sort of saying that they're going to be doing it. You know, for the people that are still sort of hard hit. For me, so what's ended up happening for me with the government loans, and I the way that it's worked out, and I sort of said this earlier before it worked, I think that I should be able to borrow my gross income from the year prior. And now I'm sort of thinking I should be able to borrow another half of that gross income from 2019 to be able to keep myself going. And like I said, I've got no problems paying it back. I don't need it as a grant. I don't need it in, you know, I just need to be able to get myself back. And when we're just now starting to come out of the lockout here in BC, it's been what, a week, that people are actually able to get out of their seats and walk around a bar kind of thing. I just need the time, and I need to have the income. So I'm not a big fan of the banks, but the government has come along and guaranteed the loans. I would love to be able to have a little bit more access to that. As far as the CERB goes, you know, to me, as long as we've got this pandemic, it probably should be available. Yeah, and I'm going to say one other thing. I'm a Nexus holder. I don't know if you guys know what the Nexus is, but it allows me to cross the border. They have a thing that says if you screw with it, lie, cheat, whatever, it's gone for the rest of your life. To me, a very simple thing with the CERB and all these kind of programs is if you cheat it, you know, if you're somebody that's you know, not needing it, just cheating it, you don't get any more government help. I think your taxes go back up. You don't get any reduction on your taxes. You're going to pay that full. You know, no, you don't get any help. And then that way, I think people are just police themselves. And then that way, maybe you don't have to worry so much about, you know, how long you're running a CERB program for. I think a lot, you know, as you heard the first speaker, she apparently used it and stopped using it when she got working again. And for me, it would be the same thing. If I'm able to, you know, get myself back to a level where I'm breaking even or not losing $15,000 a month, I'm more than happy to stop using it. So.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Next we have Crystal. She's from BC and she's going to tell us about her CERB experience.
Hi everyone. So before I was on CRB and CERB, I was actually a very successful freelance photographer. I was submitting photographs for travel magazines, entertainment industry magazines, Comic-Cons, comedy shows. A lot of my income came from the festival, events, weddings, travel industry. That is the basis of what my income was. I also self-contract as a skip the dishes delivery driver. So while I was on CERB, I wasn't ever not working. My income was just a lot less than what it took for me to pay my bills. Also, when the pandemic hit, I ended up contracting COVID-19. So now I'm living with the long-term effects of having had COVID. I'm a long hauler. My health will never be the same. So I won't ever be able to work as much as I did prior to the pandemic. CERB helped me be able to move across the country to be closer to my family, to have support. It helped me to be able to pay rent when Skip the Dishes was very low and I can't work as much. I'm barely scraping by. My income is $2,500 a month and my rent is $1,620 for a 2-bedroom. And I live in a vacancy rate of 1%. So if I lose this house, I will be homeless with my son. So I guess my main concern about not having the CERB is that I'm going to end up having to put my health at risk to work more hours. It is well-known fact that when people are able to eat healthier and afford food, they're not stressed out about how they're going to pay their bills. They are not as sick. And that is 100%, even as a COVID long hauler, now that I'm stressing out about what I'm going to do now that the CERB and CRB has ended, because my doctor has told me to limit the time I'm in public because of my immune systems, I'm noticing myself becoming sicker and feeling sicker because I'm stressed out. So I am very thankful for the Liberal government and what they did for us. CERB was very important, but the fact of the matter remains, the travel industry, the entertainment industry, and the wedding industry is not going to pick up enough for me to pick up photography work in the same aspect that I was pre-COVID-19 and pre-pandemic for the next 18 months to possibly 3.5 years is what they're predicting. So in the meantime, we're left to scramble or go on social assistance. But the thing with social assistance is if you make over a certain threshold of income, you don't qualify for that. So a UBI put in place not only, and even an extra $600 would allow me to also go back to university and re-up my skills in a different career path that I'm interested in so that I can have a backup plan. You know, so I guess what I'm saying is like income security is important for everyone, not just for like disabled people or whatnot, because you never know what will happen tomorrow. I thought I would be healthy for the rest of my life, and then I ended up with COVID. I didn't ask to get sick. I didn't ask to have long hauler syndrome, but I don't think that I should be punished because I can't work as much as Joe Blow, who owns a much more successful business or who can work more hours than I am. I am a single mom with a disabled child. My son has autism. And even though there are benefits for childcare subsidy, I don't get to qualify for that because my son is over 12, even though he can't stay on his own. So a lot of parents are also being left in the dust because we're limited to the amount of hours we can work if we have a situation where we're a single parent or our child has a disability where they can't stay on their own. So it's very limiting and it's very degrading to feel like, you know, that you're being called lazy because you have to access these government programs. Nobody should ever have to feel like they're being degraded when they're trying their hardest to just recover what they lost pre-pandemic. And I guess that's my story.
Okay, well, thank you. Let me just make sure you're unmuted here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. First of all, congratulations on surviving COVID. I am a COVID survivor myself, so, and a long hauler, so I know exactly what you're going through. So I just want to say congratulations on that. And I know it's hard. It's day by day. and everything. So I know what you're going through. I know exactly what you're going through. I know that you're very well versed in the UBI. Do you want to, what do you think about it? Do you think they should, if they can't extend the CRB, do you think we should get UBI or a basic income?
I do. I think at minimum it should be $600 to $1,000. UBI is basically not, it's a two multi-factor system. Not only does it help people live in dignity, but it holds employers accountable to give living wages and safer working conditions. And not only that, it should be set at a level of at the same level of inflation as the level of inflation is for Canada, so that people can still afford to pay their bills, so that employers are paying livable wages. And UBI was never meant for people to like sit on it. It's meant to help you live in dignity and with comfort. It's there to help you pay your bills. I've been studying UBI since 2009. I've studied it all across the world, and in every situation where UBI has been implemented, it shows that people are more motivated to actually go to work because they're not super desperate for a job that they have to take whatever crumbs they're given. They have a choice in good jobs that are safe, that are treating you properly. So it also keeps the employers in check and takes down the false dichotomy that there's a labor shortage. The labor shortage is a creation from businesses so they can have an excuse to continue treating people with unsafe conditions and low wages.
You're right on that. You're totally right on that. Thank you. We're just going to go on to the next speaker, but please stay put. So in case there's questions afterwards.
Thank you so much for having me as a panel, and I'll definitely stay put in case there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Next is going to be Aviva. She asked to speak. So we're gonna add 3 people on here. So I'm just waiting for Chelsea there. Do you have her handy to unmute? Can you unmute yourself?
Was it Aviva or Avila?
Yeah.
Okay.
Avila.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I might have the wrong person highlighted then.
Oh, it could be the same person, Aviva. Just Avila, I think.
It should be Aviva. If it's me, it's Aviva.
There we go. There we go. She's there. Hello. Okay, go ahead. I would like, where are you from?
I'm from Ontario.
Ontario.
Yeah, Pickering, Ontario. So small, just outside of Toronto, just like east. So I'm a full-time college student. Let me be perfectly clear. I'm a full-time college student. I have been since pre-pandemic. And pre-pandemic, I was working as a brand ambassador because of my program and the hours I was allowed to work, even though I'm a domestic. Being a brand ambassador, basically your sample ladies, was the best job I can do. I was able to study and work at the exact same time, still have an income, still be able to go to school. It looked good for OSAP because I was relying on OSAP as well, which is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. During the pandemic, once the pandemic hit, obviously I was switched to online. I've been online classes since March of 2020. I have not seen a professor or a classmate since. I just see names and I hope they're there. That's been my attitude. And because of what I was doing going into stores and everything being deemed non-essential versus essential, I was deemed non-essential. So I was let go, and I was let go for the longest time. Starting on the regular CERB because I was working. I did have hours behind me. And then students, we rose up and we said, this isn't fair. Not every student qualifies. We should have our own special thing called student CERB or I think it's CSRB or whatever. At that point, the Liberal government said to me, you can qualify for student CERB because you were on OSAP and you're on OSAP. So I switched over very happily. They switched to me and there we go. I got $2,000 a month and I was I was using it to pay to live, to get my textbooks, to buy food, to make sure I was alive. Like I live with my other half, which has been great, but I had bills that I needed to pay and it was helping. Then they stopped that completely. And they said to me, you're on EI. Well, EI is based on the hours you've worked. So if you haven't worked since March of 2020, like I have, you were getting almost nothing, it felt like. Going from almost 2,000 straight down to less than 1,000, the bill difference started to show. I had to rely on my other half and my mom to help me out. So I didn't die and I stayed alive and I was able to be a successful-ish person. Then they switched me to CRB and that was eye-opening. I only got 2 weeks of it because I was on EI. And again, it just ran out on me. I'm now wondering, am I being recalled to work? Will I have my hours? Will I be able to stay in school and work? What am I giving up? The Liberal government's been great. Don't get me wrong. I love the Liberal government. I've always voted for them. I continue to vote for them. But as a student going, what do I do now? What is my next game plan? What is my next step? I'm not ready to be in the real world because I only have my undergrad. I'm trying to get my postgrad. A lot of places aren't even they're still recalling their original staff. So I'm not even on a hiring list as of yet. I'm stuck. I'm going, where is my next source of food coming from? How am I going to pay my visa? How am I going to bill my MasterCard? How am I going to make sure I can get my books for next semester? How am I paying for class in like 2 weeks? Because I've been cut completely now. Do I wish we could get something more? Absolutely. Would the government please consider students? Because we're part of that. We've been impacted too. High school and elementary students are back in the building, which is great. Selected programs in post-secondary are back on campus. I'm a business grad. I'm a business student. I'm a PR student. We can work from home. They are training us that now, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, but I can't work. I have no income. I'm relying on friends and family right now to get me through. And I keep saying, I'll pay you back when I get money. And they go, well, when's that going to be? And I shrug and go, ask the government for me. I shouldn't be asking my friends and my family to help me out. I shouldn't be learning how to rely on others other than the basic necessities, food, roof over your head, water, etc., etc. So that's me in a nutshell right now. Been home since 2020. My family had our own COVID scare. Luckily, I've been away, so I've been safe. But the fact is, even with my family, they're wondering, how are you going to survive the next few, whatever, till I can get into the real world, as they like to say, and find a job in my field.
Okay, just out of curiosity, have you tried to apply for assistance at all? And if so, what did they say?
I have. I don't qualify because I'm an adult in school. They don't accept it. You have to be either an adult with kids and the kids are in school, or you need to be under the poverty line. So I don't qualify because I'm an adult who's decided to further their education.
So in other words, just slipping through the cracks easy.
Yeah,
and that's
very easily. And that's wrong. And nobody realizes that once you turn 18, you're an adult, but you have adults in school because you graduate, at least here in Ontario, at 17 in high school, and most students go straight into post-secondary. The minute you turn 18, the government sees you as an adult and you slip through the cracks very easily and very quickly.
And, you know, with me, myself, I'm on the system. I'm on disability, and I'll tell my story after, but you'll understand what I'm going through. But I feel your pain, my friend. I feel your pain. But thank you for staying in school and keeping up with it, and still going to school. So that I commend you for that, especially with online learning and adapting and everything else. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that once I graduate, the world will be somewhat more open and I'll be able to get a job in my field. Otherwise, I'm going to be the forever student just trying to stay ahead and learn. And that's not fair on me either. I have dreams. One of them is to be a successful adult, and I can't do that if I don't get the help I need financially.
Exactly. Well, thank you for your time today, and please stay put. We have media here, so that they may want to ask some questions at the end.
I'll stay for as long as it takes.
Okay, thank you. Can we unmute Crystal for a minute?
I thought I was next.
Yeah, you are next, but just give 1 second. I'm going to just Crystal put something into the chat, so I just want her to say it on cam, please.
So the difficult part about social assistance is they're not equitable to people in domestic partnerships because of the fact that they consider your spouse's income as income. But what they're not realizing is you need 2 incomes in this economy to live. You cannot live on 1 income. You cannot survive on 1 income. And especially if you have a disability, it should not, like, I'm not saying anything about how, like, people who twist the system. If you're cheating the system and too lazy to work, you shouldn't be on social assistance, and that shouldn't be an option for you. But if there are serious barriers, like you need help to be at home, you need help for social assistance, the rate should be a lot higher than they are, because they are well below the poverty line. And 2, they shouldn't take into account what your spouse makes if they're aware that you need 2 incomes to live, and they absolutely know this. And the social welfare program absolutely needs reform, which is another reason why UBI should be a thing, because it is not taking your spouse's income into a factor, and it factors in that everybody has their own expenses, regardless of if you're in a partnership or not. Just like if you're a single parent, as I am, when you leave that relationship and get child support, you're still contributing to your child's needs. So if I'm contributing to my child's needs, my ex needs to also contribute to his needs, because we created this baby as 1 unit, but our responsibility to him doesn't end just because we split up, if that makes sense.
That does. Thank you so much, Crystal. Next we have Yvonne. Yvonne, I could be mistaken, but I think I have met her in the basic income group, and I think she was an OBI recipient. I could be wrong.
ODSP.
Oh, you're on ODSP. So you were not on the basic income at all? You were just in the group.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Okay. I have been on when COVID hit, I just moved to London. The year before, my dad died on election day when Doug Ford got in. And the end of February of last year is when I moved to London, just as COVID hit. And I was watching the news like 24 hours, almost all the time, when it talked about their CERB, and once they were saying, if you made $5,000 before the year before, you qualify. I did. I got it. But when they switched it over to unemployment for the CERB and EI, then when they switched it over to the recovery benefit, I have already received something saying, you owe us $3,000. You need to pay us back. Just because if someone is not looking for work and say they are, like, I'm a college student to Aviva. I'm a college student. I'm doing it from home too. And it is very hard when you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. I was working, I quit my job before I started school. Even though I got the CERB, I did tell my hours and everything. But then when they switched it over to recovery benefit, that's when they get you. And they got me because I got documentation here saying just because you're not looking for work and you quit your job just because of school, they want you to pay $3,000 back to them. And I have spoken to many times to the people over the phone for EI, and they're saying, it's our problem. It's our fault that we made the mistake, but it doesn't matter. You still have to owe, you owe us $3,000 back because we overpaid you. And when you're on ODSP, I have a $10,000 debt from ODSP saying because I got the recovery benefit and the CERB benefit. So they really get you really good when you are on ODSP, because they got me really good, where I owe $3,000 to unemployment, $10,000 to ODSP because I got the recovery benefit and the CERB benefit. And it makes, I'm just scripping by here. I just finally got my debts paid off, my credit card bills paid off with the money that I got. And then now ODSP is taking $64.25 off my check that I got today just to pay $10,000 debt off the money I got from unemployment. It is making it hard, where people said at first, don't get it because they're going to get you back in the long run. And then my worker said, go for it. And when then I do it, and then I get in hot water. I have found that what they've done to us is really uncalled for. And besides, the Doug Ford government, they were supposed to increase ODSP, but then they decided not to. They said, okay, we'll do 1.5% instead of the 3% that liberals were going to give us. And that's still nothing. Basically, right now, I'm just getting by because right now I live with my mom, who is a senior. And right now we're in a rental house, which we don't know if the rent goes up, we may have to pick up and move. And I don't have a lot of money to pay out money for a moving cost. It's really dire, where the government is screwed us really good, and it's not going to improve my life any better. Like sometimes it's just almost like I want to cry, because how am I going to pay off all of this debt? I still have school loans to pay off from another school I went to, and that's $3,700. And I am trying to get another job, but right now I'm just finishing my third semester. I have one more semester of college left, and then I can hope. And then even when I signed up for college last year, the accessibility services is a joke. they did not want to listen to me. They did not want to help me. They just put me in a modified program where I was first accepted to diploma program, but they did not want to support me in the diploma program at Fanshawe College. They just said, you know what, we don't think you can do it. Even though they had tutors lined up and everything for me, did not happen.
Well, so Yvonne, after this is over, can you inbox me and I will try to give you direction on how to help you on the ODSP side, and hopefully
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I'll talk to our CRA guy in the group, and Serge, and see what he can do for you. So hit me up right after this, give it about an hour afterwards, and we'll try to help you out, okay?
Please and thank you.
And I know how the struggle is real, my friend. The struggle is real. I know
that they are doing something with the Canada disability benefit, and then they're supposed to, with the federal government, supposed to do something. But I saw a private member's bill come through about the universal basic income. So
okay,
I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Okay, so with those, we had the private members bill, C273, and that was brought forth in February by Julie Dorowitz. I think she's Toronto Davenport, but I could be wrong. I'm sorry, Julie.
You're right, Toronto Davenport.
Okay, and she put that through, and she had a seconder because an election has been called. Everything that was tabled. Okay, so Bill C273 is the UBI pilot. They want to do a pilot for 2 years, and maybe Chelsea, do you want to talk about that? The Bill 273. Do you know enough about it?
I don't know that I'm well enough read on that to speak to it, but
okay. All's that I know that it was tabled, and also regular bill C35 was tabled, and that was the disability inclusion benefit, and that was to give people with disabilities extra money per month. It needs to be retabled again. According to my MP, it should be retabled within a month of going back, and then they'll bicker about it in the House. Hopefully, it will start in July. Can't guarantee that, but we hope. And they say that with that we still get our provincial funds on top of that. So. That's a little extra, something like the child tax credit. So those are two things that are up in the House, and we're just waiting for it to retabled because of the election being called. So that's what's happening there on those two. So thank you so much, Yvonne. Next, we're going to have Martha. She wants to speak.
Hi. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story, because I feel like it's important to get as many different situations out there as possible, because that's why so many people are falling through the cracks. Sorry, I don't know why I'm blurry right now. But that's why I feel like so many people are falling through the cracks, is they're trying to blanket situations, and you can't do that with everything that's going on. I can only speak from my situation and my perspective. All of this has been a learning curve for me, especially the political side. I have a sensory processing disorder, so my brain doesn't work in a way that easily wraps around these concepts and things. So I've had to dedicate extra education to myself and just figuring out, how can I help? Where do I fall in? What does any of this mean for me? This was the first year I registered to vote, just to try and make some difference in my, learning process of all of these things. Thankfully, I'm a very proud military spouse. My husband serves our country very proudly. So I'm thankful that I have the support of his career and his income. However, when we did our budget after we had our child, our plan was for me to go to work part-time somewheres, but we're finding now that it's becoming less and less possible, especially from a female perspective with children, to get an accessible part-time job that is willing to meet the standards of your family and things like that, especially where there's so much technology coming into the store. You can't just go to Walmart and get a cashier job anymore, because half of the jobs have gone to the robots, because I'm sorry, I can't think of the actual name, self-checkout. With the CERB, I took some comfort in that. Okay, I know where at least my portion of finances are coming from. Is it's extremely upsetting to be part of a team and feel like you're not able to contribute to you and your family and your spouse and your child when, before COVID happened, I had a difficult time even just finding a part-time job, which I then lost because of COVID. Also, with having a military spouse, they can say, which is what happened with COVID, we had a phone call, get your affairs in order, you are being quarantined to the ship the next day. And then that leaves me to be home with our child who wasn't registered for daycare at the time. Then you're getting into the wait list and the wait list on top of wait lists, because so many people were trying to get their children into places like that. I personally feel with a universal basic income, it could help so many different situations that are out there. My child also has a sensory processing disorder. I worked as an educational program assistant in the schools 4 years with children with special needs. I know what her classroom experience is going to look like. It's going to be similar to mine. She's not going to have a positive experience. She's going to be the class. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I don't know what class sizes are like for other provinces, but for here, they're so big. No child in our classrooms gets the attention that they need. Never mind if you're someone who has extra disabilities or invisible disabilities on top of it. I also have a number of health concerns that my doctors are just trying to figure out what's wrong with me so that I can eventually get disability. But that in itself is also hard to do because I'm discriminated against because of my age. People think where I'm so young and I look healthy that I'm fine, but they don't know that every morning I'm in the bathroom throwing up for 5 hours, and the only way to stop it is to go to the emergency room and be put on intravenous medications because they don't know what's wrong with me yet. And you can't explain that to a new employer that, I'm willing to do this job for you, but every 3 days I'm going to have to call in sick because I'm going to be debilitatingly ill on my bathroom floor and they don't know what's wrong with me. And as of right now, where I don't have a diagnosis, I don't qualify for disability. That's still a hard work in progress because there's also the learning curve around how do I get that? Am I going to fall through the cracks for that as well? If I had a universal basic income to fall back on, even just temporarily, well, I could figure those things out or even put myself back through online courses at home and not have to worry about my contribution to my family. Or if we had permanent universal benefit for people, I would willingly keep my child home and homeschool her in an environment that gives her more access to the time she needs. From my personal experience in school with my invisible disabilities, because that's what they are, because they're not things people can see unless you go inside my brain, and people can't do that. With me, we would start a topic in school, and then all of a sudden it's on to the next thing. That wasn't enough time for me to absorb and learn. Or you get other children in the classes that also have problems and cause a disruption. With the way some people's brains work, that disruption just made all of that new information leave. But I feel like for my family, if I had that option to be able to do that with her, it would be, we wouldn't be a burden on the school system, because we would be in our own environment. You know, people say about homeschool kids, oh, they're weird. There are so many other social aspects without the pressure of the school system and the anxieties that come with that. If you're someone who doesn't get along with your teacher as well, you know, in the real world, you can leave your job. You can't leave that teacher. You're stuck with that teacher for a year. I don't want to put my child through the things that I was put through, but I also, I don't want to be a burden on any system, but I also don't want to fall through the cracks, because there are things, you know, that I'm trying to figure out that like I may or may not be entitled to because of my invisible disabilities. Thankfully, I do have a partner, but where I did sign up with someone who was already in the military, I understood I'm going to be a single parent a lot of the time, which I'm perfectly fine with that, for us to be able to serve our country in that way. But then that also puts a pressure on me of I need to facilitate my child's emotional health, that, you know, daddy's not abandoning you, daddy's at work on his ship. There's a lot of different concepts about these things that, you know, not a lot of people have insight to unless you're in that particular situation. So thankfully, CERB came along in a moment when I desperately needed it. I had enough hours from that brief employment before COVID to go on to EI. And then because my child is not, and it can't get into a daycare program yet, the caregiver benefit. But now that that's over, I don't know where I'm at. There's still a lot of constant information out there that when you have a sensory issue that limits how you can receive information, it makes learning about that so much more difficult. And then you're terrified, oh my God, did I apply for this and I'm really not, you know, applicable for it? Now at some point I'm going to have to pay this money back because I didn't understand something properly. It's that they need to consider a lot of the different situations out there. Like I said, I can only really speak for myself, but that's just a little bit of where I'm at and how the Liberal government really helped me with the implementation of the CERB. And, you know, I just really want to do my part to be able to say, like, I did something to try and implement change for other people that are in a situation like me, you know, where there's invisible things wrong with us that the rest of the world doesn't see, that severely affects our health and our eligibility for employment. Or, you know, even if my kid was in daycare, it's cold season, it's runny nose season, she would have to be sent home until she receives a negative COVID test. That would be more time away from an employer. Like, and you know, it's becoming discriminatory depending on the situation you're in with your children, spouses, not spouses. I just think there needs to be a larger look at the situations people are going through.
Well,
sorry if I ramble, but yeah.
It's okay. So thank you. I just want to commend you for being a military wife. Number one, because it takes a strong woman to do that. And please thank your husband for serving our country. And
well, I'm very proud of him, and we're very grateful to be a military family. The military has amazing emotional supports for spouses and children. I just worry about my ability to contribute financially to my family and not feel like I'm putting more of a burden on my husband, because number one, he does have to leave us to go to work for quite extensive periods of time. But if I don't have any source of income, all of that stress falls to him as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for telling us your story, and
Thank you for setting this up. Thank you so much.
yes. So
I just want to second your. Sorry, don't want to interrupt, but I want to second the thank you for serving our country. It's important.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Jessie. This is another Jessie that wanted to be added to talk. She was on the CRB, and she has, take it away, Jess.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, so first off, I'm located in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, just like Martha, a little bit north of her. I want to thank the Liberals first and all of the other members that backed this motion that created the CRB in the first place, because that changed a lot for everybody. Now, ironically, I have never been on employment help or any sort of social service before at all. And I worked at home and was laid off from my at-home job because I worked for an American company. And Americans were obviously impacted a little bit harder than we were. My husband also worked for a mine out here, which needed American assistance, which we're not able to get across the border. So he was also laid off short after the pandemic was announced because, of course, Americans couldn't come over. We both decided that we were going to finally take up government assistance, which is the first time that that has ever happened for either of us. It was a difficult thing to navigate. We figured it out and we were able to help others. I still kept a job on the side that I do. So when you go to the store and you see the magazines in the rack and you see the makeup on the shelves and you see the chips and the pop, that's not actually stocked by the store. That is stocked by an outside vendor. So I am the person that stocks magazines and makeup and makes sure that all of that is in place at the store. So for 3 months, and this might make me cry a little bit, for 3 months while we did not know what COVID was, I did not hug my children. They stayed with, we do not use the word step in my family because the children have known me forever. So they stayed with their mother instead of coming to our house all the time while I kept stocking shelves. It took 3 months before I was able to hug my child. I lost most of my income from being laid off from the American job. So did my husband. So we had to claim CERB because all I had was that basic tiny little bit stocking the shelves for you guys. It was different. It was very difficult. But then I saw what frontline workers were doing. So I enrolled back in school and I used the CERB money to be able to do that. So now I'm a community support worker. I work in homes. I help people with their daily needs, and we need the staff, especially out in Nova Scotia, where we don't have that extra, community to be able to deal with people in a pandemic situation where you need one-on-one care. So that was a big opportunity for me. So I went back to school. He was laid off and he went back to welding, which is another trade he had. The essential worker, it's very interesting being an essential worker because you don't really understand what essential means. You can still claim CERB and be an essential worker, but you're only essential enough that you just are basically needed. So for certain things, you need them on the shelves, but I don't get enough money anymore to be able to fill my basic needs. So after I went back to school, I got the job doing that. And I also started a business out here. So now I create jewelry out of cremation and memorial ashes. And I've started training 2 other people to be able to help me and fulfill orders. Without the CERB, I would have not been able to afford the supplies or the time or the resources to be able to learn how to do that and to make it a profitable business. So just like the original Jessie, the first person that we spoke with said, that CERB enabled that. Without that money, I would have not been able to spend that time to be able to learn. And within 2 years, I should be profitable. But without the CERB, I now need to spend more time getting extra money on the side to be able to fulfill that need, to be able to profit that business and be able to hire people. Now, with universal basic income, that has been talked about forever. And it is in every other country that you see it implemented in. It works great. It is not for lazy people. more people do what me and a lot of other people have said are doing. We create businesses, we create employment for other people. It causes us to be able to move forward in our lives and just make a better economy and a better society. I remember back at the beginning of COVID, I was one of the first people to be COVID tested out here. I get COVID tested twice a week because I wanted to make sure everybody was safe. I want to thank the Liberal government for doing what they did, and I really hope that the NDP and the Liberals can work together and hopefully make this into something that other people can benefit from, because look at how I benefited, and look at how that girl, Jessie, who first spoke, benefited. We're going to create employment, and you need that. We need that, and especially in Nova Scotia, where we don't have much out here. I've seen so many people do so many great things with the CERB. Some people do abuse it, but the majority do take benefit of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, let me, when you went on the program, because because you said you'd never been on it before, and you and your husband talked about it. If just in a broad sense, what was the discussion with you and your husband?
Sure, of course. I'm originally from Ontario, so I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, but I moved to Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. When I grew up, being on social assistance was a stigma, like it was a bad thing. You do not do that unless you really, really, really need to, kind of thing. And obviously, if you're disabled, that's a different situation, but like you do not do it unless you really have to. We discussed it because like we didn't think that we should be doing it. We didn't think we needed it. But I had lost so much income and we didn't really have a choice. And we saw this as the opportunity. So we went, okay, we can take this money. I can buy the products and then I can start creating, and then I can create this business. And that he then also too, he went to Weld and he, invested in other things to promote himself in his own. It was a hard discussion though, because in some situations, you don't feel comfortable talking about social assistance. It feels like you're the welfare state, but you don't want to say that because it's not. It's something that everybody should have. Everybody should have a basic income. I agree somewhat with Sean, or I believe it was Sean that said that, where it should be taken away, or somebody said that, where it should be taken away if you abuse it. But I believe it should be there in the first place. Not like welfare. Welfare is a little bit separate, but I believe UBI it works in many other countries, just the same way that maternity leave and everything else that we don't have works.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that. I have a question for all the panelists. When you first got your CERB, you were getting $2,000 before taxes, and then they started when it went into the CRB, you were getting $1,800 because they were taking $200 off for taxes approximately, and then it went down to $900 after taxes. What was comfortable for you to live on out of all those three? Who wants to start? Sean? Go ahead. Okay, anybody wants to answer?
I can go.
Okay.
As a student with all of the debt, the second one was okay. The third one was like nothing. I felt like, why am I even getting this? This is worse than what OSAP had originally given me. This is like less than what I would normally make. Like I did not like the third. The second and the first, I was already used to that concept. I was used to that with OSAP giving me it up front and what I was roughly making every month already from my job. So I was already comfortable and I was already able to budget according to that. But once it went further down, I was like, I can't budget properly. This is half of what I'm used to. Not even, it was like maybe a third of what I was already used to.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit fortunate in that I'm lazy and I don't like to move. So I've been in the same place for 22 years or so, since '98. So my rent is just about $1,000. So the $2,000 actually covered my rent and sort of my basic living, food and stuff like that. So it worked out for me awesome. Again, if I was apartments in this particular building that I'm in now, if I came in to rent now, it'd be almost $600 more, and that would make it a little bit tricky, I guess. But the fact that I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head definitely was huge.
Exactly. Okay. Martha?
So the first one for me was the most beneficial, just because it was able to allow me to comfortably budget, but have, a little bit on the side in case there's some sort of small emergency situation, especially when you have a young child. And something did happen during this whole time period while my husband was away. My child had to go to the emergency room several times for something that's going on with her leg. Now that we're waiting to go to the orthopedics to see about that, because she's probably going to need cord lengthening surgery at some point, like I myself did. But though, some of that expense occurred during that period of time was unexpected, and thankfully I had put some of it away as a little baby emergency fund, or before the CERB came into play, there were actually a few days when banks and things weren't running the way they should, and I didn't know where I was going to get milk money from, because there's just some things in life like COVID that you can't plan for that.
Exactly. I always said when I was on the basic income that little extra helps, just to have into your bank account, or just to have there. My story is I was never on the CERB. I am admitted to the group. I care about my fellow Canadians. That's why I decided to be an admin. And so I was there from first day. And that's, where we have almost 22,000 people in the group. We're family. We're just not people. We're family. We support one another. We are there from the good times, the bad times, people having babies, people getting sick. I know the last 2 weeks has been really hard on a lot of people. I have gotten probably three inboxes. 3 of our members that were regulars are in the hospital. They got admitted due to stress, due to they don't know what they're going to do. Our other, I had about 8 people hit me up telling me that they got eviction notices. The whole point of this whole thing is what I want to get through is real people saying how much this helped, and that it needs to continue. It may be too late for CRB, but please get a basic income going. They can't just stop this. It's important. I know I'm on disability. I got paid today. I paid my rent, and I luckily have $23 for food this month. And we haven't hit the end of the month for next month. So I got 34 days for $23. I'll make it by. I scrape by, but I'll be okay. I know I'll be okay. I know that for myself, the province gave me $250, but you had to beg for that $250. You had to call your worker, and it depended on your worker, because some workers were saying it's just for families, not for singles. And then, so I got $50, and then I got another $200 after that, and nothing since from the Ontario government. The federal government, because I have no kids with me, I'm single, my kids are all grown and on their own. I got $336 for a GST top up that they gave in May of last year. I'm at home disabled, so I have to take taxis places I go. I was good because I get my food delivered and stuff like this way, but I was good staying at home. The first time I left home was December 27th. I went into the hospital and I got admitted on it was Happy New Year. I'm going up to my room, right, like probably a half an hour after all the doctors and nurses screamed Happy New Year. And so I went up to my room. 18 days later, I tested positive for COVID. So I was injured in a car accident. I have nerve damage. I have everything wrong with me. But after my car accident, I had a good job. I was making really good money. I was in management. I worked for the government. I was making really, really good money. After my accident, I had to sell my condo. I had to do all that. It was a mess. So now I'm dealing with COVID after effects. I'm dealing with, I can't walk more than 50 feet without being out of breath. It's hard. It's hard. But I'm there to help my fellow Canadians. I'm actually sitting in a chair. Usually I'm in the bed, but it's killing me. I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm here. And the whole thing is, we need the government to listen to us. Remember, we elected them in, and with them electing, with us electing them in, they work for us. They don't work for the leaders. It's what your constituents want. So when we put this on the YouTube station, I would hope that everybody would take some time out and in their province email your personal letter with the link for them to watch, so that they can sit there and see emotion, put faces to the names, instead of on the phone, yeah, whatever, or go goodbye, and it's nothing. It's a long shot. I know it's a long shot, but we have to try something.
Tracy, sorry.
Go ahead.
If I may, would I be able to read the letter that I wrote that got the attention of Jagmeet Singh?
Yes, please.
So that people can can see what I wrote.
So did he personally write back? Because
so his
go ahead.
His office manager and PR assistant wrote me back, but she did say that Jagmeet had read it and forwarded it to her. So she reached out to me. And as to how much benefited me the most, the $2,000 was the biggest benefit for me. And I think if we could keep it at a $2,000 limit, I'm a numbers person. So when Jagmeet said, if we did a $2,000 UBI, it would put $20 billion back into the economy and pay for itself within the first year, I fact checked that, and it actually checks out, because people will be able to spend more money on groceries. They'll be able to take their kids to movies. They'll be able to spend money in recreation and things that they wouldn't be able to afford for extracurriculars for their kids. So I think to live comfortably and offer your kids opportunities that they might not get without it, that's worth it to me. But I'm just trying to find the email here, so just give me 1 second. And it kind of upset me because I had gotten a letter from one of Justin Trudeau's finance ministers, and basically told me, if you're suffering, go to the food bank and clothing banks. That's what they're there for. So
And isn't it sad that they want, you know, like when he first dished out the money, he's saying, oh, go to Red Cross and go to these places, go to these food banks, go here, go there.
That
But
doesn't solve the bill problem.
wouldn't it be easier for people to go and get their own foods? And because you don't know what's at a food bank, you can't get meats. I know here in Ontario you can't.
And oftentimes food banks are giving you expired or just about to expire food and milk. So, and exactly, they don't deal with dietary restrictions. Not everybody can eat what the food bank has to offer you. So this is the letter that I wrote all MPs. I wrote Erin O'Toole this letter. I wrote Jagmeet Singh this letter. I wrote Justin Trudeau's office this letter, and my own MP this letter. And it says, to the Right Honorable Jagmeet Singh, I'm writing to you today to ask to extend the CRB income supports for persons still affected by the pandemic. I'm a citizen of Victoria, British Columbia, who is self-employed, a contract delivery driver through Skip the Dishes, and because I have multiple issues with immune disorders, I cannot work the same amount of hours I would normally be able to, because I have to limit the amount of time I'm in the public to reduce my risk of contracting COVID-19. As I'm not yet eligible for the booster and the numbers are still rising here, it puts great stress on me as to what will happen when CRB ends. This pandemic has been hard on all of us, but especially me. You raised CCB for children under 6, yet left those of us who have children over 6 in the dark. My son is 13 and autistic. I'm a single mom, and I'm really struggling. The CRB gives me a little bit of a buffer to put extra food on my table and extra clothes I may need. Sorry, I have a speech impediment, and memory loss, so sometimes I stumble. I may need to put on my son, who is growing so fast and just hitting puberty. My son very much costs me a lot to feed and clothe, and I'm barely scraping by and making ends meet when it comes to renting and other necessities. If you can't extend CRB, please consider implementing a universal basic income program, because I don't know how I will survive without CRB or other supports. No one should have to worry about what they will do when it comes to rent and food. Income security is a must. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, my name. So,
awesome letter, my friend. Awesome letter.
Jagmeet did write that. His office reached out and said, "What can we do? How can we help?" And I'm literally appalled that I didn't get any other responses from anyone else but Jagmeet Singh in his office.
Make sure that you send him this link so he actually does get it, and I'll give you my information with my phone number and everything, so if he needs to talk to anybody, he can give me a call.
Well, that's why I think at the beginning of what I said too, it was important to not just thank the Liberal government, but the other people that are behind UBI that are pushing for it, because it's not the Liberals.
Well,
but they are the people that are going to have to facilitate it. So
on the same respect, like, the Liberals didn't just implement it. It was a team effort, because they have a minority government, and how minority governments is you need everyone to work together. It's not just done by one government. So they can't really take all the credit.
Exactly. I know that Trudeau, when he canceled the CRB, he says, oh, there's going to be a lockdown benefit. Well, let's be real about this lockdown benefit.
That's never going to be.
We were on lockdown when he first gave the money. Okay. So it was like 6 weeks we were on lockdown. But guess what? In Ontario, we were at stay-at-home orders from September until July. He
Yeah.
never used a lockdown. He used stay-at-home orders. New Brunswick right now are on stay-at-home orders. Alberta's on stay-at-home orders.
Some
So,
parts of BC are on stay-at-home orders.
right. So nobody's using lockdown. So let's be real. $7.8 billion in there. Okay, well, that's never going to be touched. There's the last I checked was probably about 2 months ago. I asked my MP. I says, how much is in the reserve emergency funds? And he told me almost $9 trillion. So if there's $9 trillion and you spent 1 trillion, maybe 2 trillion on this, okay, so I paid taxes. I paid through the nose in taxes for 29 years. Now I need help. So why aren't you helping me? $23 a month on food is not going to cover it. I was on the Ontario Basic Income Pilot and I was getting $19.15 a month. I was comfortable. I paid market rent at $13.50. I paid all my bills. I ate really good. I was having fruits, vegetables. Like, I usually can't afford those. Now, with me being on ODSP, as Yvonne said, we got a 1.5 increase, but I was on the OBI when that increase came on. So since I moved here, my rent has gone up $64.29 per month. But my check didn't go up. So the more my rent goes up, the more less I have to pay. So this is the whole thing. Too many people are slipping through the cracks. We all know that. We know that this is happening. And we need to do something. The provincial government, the federal governments need to get together, either extend the CERB or give everybody at least $1,000, because if 880,000 people who are there, and don't get me wrong, the people are back working. Yes, they are, but they're only working maybe 5-10 hours a week. It's not 40 hours a week. And they still rely on the CERB. So what are people going to do working 10 hours a week? In Ontario is $14, so we'll average it $15. So a week you're making $150, so you're making $600. Okay, so what's $600 going to do when your rent is $1,500? They need to do supplement
on increasing or leaving the CRB or universal basic income at $1,000 is that provinces should be required to supplement that as well based on their basic income or rent levels, just like they do for child tax benefit. So they have a provincial supplement in each province for children if you are under a certain income level. And I think that should be as well on UBI. Provincial government should supplement it to the very basic of what would bring us up to what it costs to rent at market.
I am with Crystal here. If you look at, I'm from Ontario and Nova Scotia, so it is a very different situation. I can live off one income here where I can live off a different income in Ontario. It's not the same whatsoever. It should be developed by economists and people that are qualified to figure out what is required to live a basic healthy life in each province, in each area of each province.
Uh-huh.
I would have to say also that right now, every province is different. Right now, people might be getting, the ones that are in lockdown, or the people that are in stay-at-home orders might be getting some more money, where here in Ontario, where I am, in London, Ontario. Right now, it's all finished. It's all stopped. So there's no more happening. That it's not like we need something to adjust to on the same wavelength of the on how much everything is. So $2,000, and then as long as they don't keep raising the food and the housing and everything else, just
and that's
keep
what
it
I was saying
$2,000.
earlier. That's exactly what I was saying earlier. They need to raise it with the inflation rate every year. And the inflation rate is federally regulated. So businesses are not allowed to put their prices up above what the inflation rate is in Canada each year. So right now it's at 3.14%. So prices cannot raise more than 3.14% of what they were the year prior. So UBI or a system like that needs to also go up by that, whatever the inflation rate is set at for that year.
Awesome. Is there, let me ask, anybody in the group that was on the caregivers benefit that would like to speak regarding that? Can you please let us know? And then we can get you on here because somebody wants to hear about the caregivers benefits, as nobody has been on that. So anybody there? We have media, we have CBC in here, we have CTV, and we have Global, the Toronto Star. So any of you have any questions, or any other reporters that are out there that have any questions, please let us know. Put it in the box, or you can go, you can unmute yourself.
I just added someone whose name is iPhone, but I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
My name's Tara. My name's Tara.
Hi.
Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Are you, were you on the caregivers benefit?
I was on the caregivers benefit. Unfortunately, I have now used up all my weeks, and so that is no longer available to me. I look after my grandfather, who is in the end stages of stomach cancer, and he can only get caregivers in maybe twice a week. So I had to quit my job and basically take care of my grandfather through this pandemic, because he was not able to take care of himself. And I think there really is a need for this caregiver's benefit, especially with the people who are looking after children who have medical needs, and looking after children, or looking after seniors who cannot take care of themselves. They need a way to supplement that income. They need a way to pay the rent. They need a way to get groceries. And with the caregivers, you know, in limbo right now, it's leaving a lot of people without.
Exactly. So if you don't mind me asking, what is your name and where are you from?
My name is Tara O'Donnell. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario.
Thank you.
Can I speak on that at all?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that would be a separate issue too. In Nova Scotia here, we do have a caregiver's benefit that goes outside. Sorry, my camera is off. It's not working.
That's
We do
okay.
have a caregiver's benefit that was implemented outside of COVID. It existed long before. So you guys need to push your provincial MPs to implement the exact same one. So what
Yes.
happens is if you are a full-time caregiver, you end up with a certain supplement. I believe it's like $400 every 2 weeks or something to assist you with caring for a family member. Now you need to push your MPs to do the same thing that Nova Scotia did. Unfortunately, we did that because we have a lack of healthcare workers, but that is something you need to push your MP to do as well.
Okay.
Exactly. What I was going to say was with everything ending with the weeks, and they extended the CRB, but then they didn't extend the weeks other than 2 weeks, which is unfair. I totally believe it's unfair. I'm still, when I was watching I was on a Zoom conference when I was watching it. So I was like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Like I started crying. I didn't know what to do. I was worried about my fellow Canadians. And then I just got into support mode. And, and it's just so heart-wrenching, and hearing the stories, and, a lot of people inbox me, and I'm there to listen. And I listen. It helps me. And it helps me every day to help my fellow Canadians. So, I'm always here. But we have one more person, that Terry wants to speak. So can you unmute yourself?
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. So I did receive caregiver benefits.
Where are you located?
Timmins, Ontario.
Okay, go ahead.
It's been hard for me too with it ending. I'm not a caregiver to a child. I am to my husband post-cancer. He had a stem cell transplant, which has challenged his immune system severely. And particularly with COVID, to have him out anywhere, it's been a real benefit to us. So that's one of the ones I find hard to see the government stop at this point, because his health isn't going to get better. It's not going to change. So I understand.
Go ahead.
The perspective of the caregiver, of partners, adults.
And how did the CRB help you with monthly bills and stuff like that? How was that?
Well, it gave me the opportunity to stay home with him and allow him to be in the house safe. It does help with the cost of groceries, transportation. Took a lot of pressure off of having to leave and expose him to the COVID situations, to the general public. So it's challenging to be in the position now that it's not a safer world for him, but I do need to get out to bring in that secondary income again.
So what are you going to do after, like, where do you see your future right now with it being canceled?
I feel myself in the position again of, because we were used to two incomes, it's familiar in our household until he got sick, myself being back out, finding a part-time job and not being able to keep him home safe.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's really hard.
Especially when you're trying to keep your loved ones safe, and when you know that it's really, COVID has taken so many lives.
This is, yeah.
I can tell you, when I had my COVID, I was in the hospital, and it was hell. It was hell to the point that 2 of my roommates passed away. They didn't have room in the morgue. And when they didn't have room in the morgue, they were beside me, dead for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
And it was hard to see that. and know that.
That's the fear I have too.
And they passed away alone. And that's the sad thing, you know.
It is.
And just seeing that, it's heart-wrenching. And then that's why it made me push harder for the group as best as I can. Because I don't want any.
Done a lot.
I just don't. I'm crushed for all my Canadians. I know I was crushed when the basic income was canceled for me. Now I'm crushed for 880,000 people that rely on this program. And
something we didn't expect.
I hear people saying that they applied for assistance and them saying, I own a house. They told me my mortgage was too much. They told me to sell my house, then live off of that, then come back when you have less than $5,000 in the bank. What? Well,
True.
you own a car,
True.
so
Yeah.
don't apply because we're not paying your car loan. Or I'm sorry, you need under $5,000 in your bank account. When that's depleted, give us a call. How is that?
You said 880,000 people, right?
880,000 people.
That is the number that they have for the government. When I start getting CERB, then I cannot pay 2 people because I don't have time and I have to get a second job. So now other people are going to have to go on assistance. 880,000 is not the number. You have the children, you have the employees, of people like Sean, like me.
It's not
880,000. It's much more.
Let's be real. It's 880,000 families. And like people are looking for jobs. Our admin for the group, Jacob, and he's a manager, and he said he posted on Indeed, and for one manager's job he had 1,300 applications come in within 2 hours.
The thing that bothers me about them saying that, you know, our unemployment rates are back to pre-pandemic levels is they're not taking into consideration that part-time employment and seasonal employment is not enough to pay the bills. So those unemployment numbers are going to rise after the Christmas holiday, because a lot of those jobs are seasonal jobs and part-time jobs. You can't, you shouldn't be able to include those in unemployment numbers.
And it's not just that. Sorry, Tracy. It's not just that, but you also have those like me that are in industries that are not allowed to come back into stores yet because we're deemed non-essential, even though the store is. So we're part of those numbers, and who knows how much longer we'll be there or when we'll get recalled. We're in a flux ourselves. So I get where they're coming from, and they're doing their surveys and whatever, and I get that. But the numbers just seem off because they're not being realistic on who was working before pandemic and then who got hit during pandemic and who's still going to be hit whenever post-pandemic is supposed to be.
Right.
Sorry. I was going to say, someone who's taking stats class, that's what bothers me is how they project the numbers when they're using the formulas. And it's the stupid thing is, to be an average, you barely need to be above 50%. So the way they project all these numbers is what really bothers me, because it's not true data. Exactly. You know what I mean? So I really feel for you guys when they say all these numbers, because if you actually go look at the formula, no, there's way more people affected. You guys are taking an average, and it just really bothers me. I'm sorry, I had to speak up.
The rhetoric that businesses are crying for employees and that there's a labor shortage is created by businesses who put out 1 or 2 jobs for like 8,000 people applying.
And they don't give enough wages.
Exactly.
You know,
want you to work for minimum wage and have a master's degree to work for $15.92 an hour. Make that make sense.
Right.
The only thing I really noticed living in BC is that since CERB happened, that some employers have really realized they need to pay their employees better.
Mhm.
And if they can't pay them better because they're constricted to whatever corporate limits, I recently got a job and I work from home. And the company I work for acts like a union for us. You know what I mean? And that's rare. And so I get all the tax benefits of working from home because of COVID. And it's really changed because before we couldn't say we worked from home, but because of COVID, it actually shows the company cares.
Exactly.
So I really feel for everybody that's not allowed back to work because the company refuses to adjust.
Right.
I think that speaks for a lot of people that created businesses during the CERB area, because we learned what a responsible income is. So if you don't give me the CERB and help me out if I do need help, then I can't keep two people employed where they have a proper income and they can support their families. And we need that.
So
we're
we're hitting the 2-hour mark. So in closing for this one, everybody that's in the group, please stay after we stop recording, and then we can still talk a couple minutes afterwards. So don't leave. When I'm going to put it on my YouTube station. In there's going to be a link put in the group. You can write a letter. If you can, write every MP and MPP in your province. This way, they know that it's there, it's wanted, and they can go off of that. If we can't get anything from provincial or from the federals, let's go provincial. I know that in Ontario, one of the leaders said that they're going to start up the basic income, but he only wants to do a pilot. We all know CERB was a Canada-wide pilot for 2 years. It kept our economy growing, and we did not go into a recession yet. But let's send this to the MPs and get it out there. Circulate it. Put it in all your groups. Everything. We need this, and we need it badly. So I want to thank everybody who have spoken today. Thanking my host there, Chelsea, for keeping everything in check.
Thank you for everything that you did to organize this. It was fantastic. Really great to hear people's stories.
Thank you, Tracy.
I figured that if MPs can see people's faces, emotions, and real life things, maybe they'll change their mind. It needs to be changed. We don't need a lockdown benefit. Please extend the CERB. If it's too late for the CERB, give everybody a basic income. Everybody in Canada. If it's not universal, under a certain amount that they made, give them a basic income. No clawbacks for the provinces. You're good to go. We got to do something. And
absolutely.
Just share. That's what I'm asking you all to do. Do what you can. This is what needs to be done. Crystal, if you can you make a thread? I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you in a minute. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
So please, everybody, please stay, and then we can talk. Thank you, everybody, and please make sure that you stay safe and stay healthy. COVID is still out there. We need to make sure that we stay safe and healthy. If you choose not to get your vaccines, that's a personal choice. It's your body and everything else, but please keep everybody else safe, okay? Don't put anybody's health at risk. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.